So, we've talked a lot about like society ourselves, like outside of here and such. My tea bag here literally says, inner peace creates peace in the world. And I think it's kind of interesting because I had a thought the other day in regards to like, how does this world actually change to be a better place? I mean, we're talking about microdosing, we're talking about all this kind of stuff, right? But how indeed do things actually change that is going to become a lasting change for the better within our society? And I think the thing that everybody forgets is that change begins within yourself. So if indeed for a moment, there's a magnificent story I cannot recommend enough called The Egg by Andy Weir. Andy, W-E-H-R, and it's literally called The Egg. There's a rendition of it on Galactic Net or something. You Google it, you'll find it. This story has stuck with me forever in terms of just one of the most mind-blowing stories. And I guess you would say it is fantasy. But it basically, I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but it talks about that we effectively, in a way, and it's a very short story, so go read it. We effectively, in a way, are all cells of the same entity. The oversoul, superconsciousness, God, whatever you want to call it, that, even when you look through a lot of the religions and the spiritual practices which are out there, we effectively, supposedly, all have living within us God, right?
We are all one.
All one, right. But the idea behind that is that if indeed God lives within all of us, let's just talk about this for a second. If indeed, from a spiritual standpoint, we're all part of the energy source, we're all part of whatever this is that powers this 3D world of which we're living in, whether it is a, program, which we'll talk about in a few, then that would effectively mean also that change within ourselves affects the entire overconsciousness itself.
Yeah. It's like real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Build a nice house in a shitty environment, it brings the value up of everything around it.
But initially what it will do is bring down the value of the one that is nice. And I think that's what stands between people and actual change. Because everybody calls for change, but everybody wants to remain the same at the same time. Because there's nothing wrong with me, there's something wrong with them.
Right.
Outside, exogenous, outside of me. Everything's wrong out there, but I'm fine. It's everybody who has to bend to my whim.
So I had heard this quote my whole life, and it didn't resonate until my friend Adam Brevoort told it to me. But he said, you have to be the change you wish to see in this world.
Gandhi, yeah. It's literally a tenet I'm building one of my businesses on.
When he said it to me, when I was, woe is me, he said that shit. And it resonated with me, and it's so true, though. Like, you literally have to start with yourself to create the change you want,
Right.
You can't expect other people to do shit you're not willing to do yourself.
Right. So if there's a malignant tumor, if you will, in the body, that's created by a whole bunch of cells. And you could look at, and metaphorically apply tumor to, different sects of society and such, and to understand like why people do the things that they do. Like you could look at gangs, you could look at, different types of violent criminals or psychopathy within our society. And you could just point to that as if it's tumors of the overall, right? With that said though, it's like looking at the tea bag here, and I was not planning on talking about this, but change starts from within. And the fact of the matter is that if you want to start a change and you are parts of the cells of the same entity, well then initially, like you said, when you build a better building, you're actually going to end up your value brought down by the surrounding area if it's not on your same level, your same frequency. But if you stand tall and strong and you convert others to be tall and strong as well, and you inspire others to, I don't know, even look at different groups of people with different backgrounds and try to understand and put yourself in your shoes, the more kindness that spreads, the better this world becomes. And I do believe there's a lot of like good and evil in this world, and perhaps there is a spiritual element where there's good and evil that is being influenced from outer forces. I mean, that's possible. But for this world to change to be a better place, I think that we all just have to start within ourselves. And I don't know, this just came from a tea bag that happens to be in my tea right now. Yeah. Like that's totally not what I was going to talk about coming down here, but
no, it's a good one.
Yeah,
it's good.
So from the society and all this kind of stuff, something else that I want to touch on with you that I thought would be massively interesting to discuss with you is the advent of artificial intelligence. So the more that I look into artificial intelligence, I'm sorry, man, I don't know if I am just negative by nature or something, but I see a massive danger.
Yeah.
No. I'm gonna hold on.
All right.
I see the potential for the absolute extinction of the human race, and in my opinion, Pandora's box is already opened.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a spiritual element to this. Looking into artificial intelligence to the level of which they are, I'll say, unleashing, you are going to have no ability to discern what is reality or falsity any longer. Wars will be started based upon absolutely unfactual things that never happened, people of which you see. Listen, I don't want to sound like too like conspiracy theory whack job here.
That's my favorite. Go ahead.
But I'm definitely that guy.
Yeah.
But
let's go.
I have never met many of our leaders. I'm not saying they don't exist. But if indeed you have fake Instagram profiles that are being created by creators that have never existed, will never exist, because they're using artificial intelligence to create these just models, if you will. And then artificial intelligence is running the social media. And people are following these, I don't know what you call it, a thing? They follow these things of these avatars that aren't real, but people think they're real people. People try to take them out on dates. People are interacting with them. They can instantly respond to messages because artificial intelligence is working 24/7. If you can already trick the populace into that, can you have a world leader of which has never existed? Well, of course you can. But can you have a world leader who does exist, saying things of which he's never said, or doing things of which he's never done, and start wars with it? Well, absolutely you can. Mm-hmm. But the level of discernment, the actual age that we are now involved in, of the level of deceit that is going to be applicable. And remember, what we see as the populace, as the common folk, what we see, typically the military, my understanding, is about 20 years in the future from here. So when we had, I don't know, I'm just making this up, but when we got access to cell phones, or we got access to certain technology, that was already here. So if we are seeing, like, for example, ChatGPT, that is able to interact with you and has a massive, massive understanding language model to go back and forth with you, we're going to enter into a place where every single person effectively can be replaced massively easily. And then if you're going to add into this society the inclusion of robots that are not discernible from humans, which they're doing some wild things recently, like they're growing human tissue, human skin on the robot's finger, okay, and in growing like hairs. Well, that is eventually going to develop into.
Can they grow my leg back? Fuck, bro.
I know. Can they back up and help with some of this stuff first? But you're gonna have a robot that is a human encasing. Like it's gonna look, talk, seem exactly like you and I, except it's plugged into the, we'll call it super consciousness, or the internet, as it will. It will have access to knowledge that you won't even understand. And it feels like with artificial intelligence coming to the levels that it's coming to, they also have even built contraptions, but also this is going to be a visual thing, that can effectively hear your thoughts because you have absolutely minuscule micro expressions when you think certain thoughts. So if I'm talking shit about you in my head, you have no idea. And I do it all the time. All I do is talk shit about Brandon. But
It's fair.
I know you give me so much content, but no, but they have this like jawbone piece that you can wear, and I don't know how it works, but it can read, again, the micro expressions of your face and such, and it goes through a language model that then spits out what you are thinking. This is real. It's already out there. No, we don't have access to it, but this is a real thing. You can Google it. You can look it up on YouTube. This exists. So you're not going to be able to hide anything of what you're thinking. And there's talks about people who are going to be this is a long rant, so just buckle up, baby. But like there is these corporations that are going to be integrating this technology to find out the actual productivity level of their workers at all times. If you have a thought about anything like leaving that company, it will immediately flag, and you can effectively be walked out the door for something of which you may not even have ever acted on. You will have no secrets. This is extremely scary technology. And then you add into the fact that this Pandora's box is being opened not just by our country. This is being opened as an arms race across the entire world right now.
Sounds like Terminator.
Well, here's the thing. The robots aren't the scary part. You are in an arms race that is country against country, because whoever conquers this area of our development first will win. This is a nuclear bomb that is centered and pointed at the entire world that will have access to all information at all times. It is... You can literally get on the phone and have a conversation that you think is with your mother. This thing will know everything that your mother knows, especially if we get to the point of integration, and I believe it's called singularity, when they actually implant this thing into your mind, into your brain. And it's so creepy. This makes the hairs on the end of my body stand up of where I'm going to go with this, so just hang tight. You will think you're having a conversation with your mother. Your mother may not exist anymore. And the more fear of which they pump out to our populace and such, the more that we stay on inside our homes and become almost like gerbils or hamsters in a cage, where we have all our electronics and we have our VR headsets and we have all the stuff of which we pseudo communicate with others that we think we're close to, but yet we have never met. We already do this. What if these people don't exist that we are interacting with? So then you go to the point where relationships are hard. Relationships are very difficult. But what if you can just order the perfect person and you can just program them how you want them to be? They respond to your every whim. They do everything that you want to do. You can download better programs for them to act out whatever it is that you want in real time. What is the use for relationships? Because relationships are hard. And the problem with relationships is that, sometimes even from just a purely primal, animalistic view, oh, she's not in the mood. Well, guess what? A robot doesn't have moods, right? What if you're in a fight? Well, you won't have a fight. You will think in the echo chamber of your mind, in the echo chamber of your home, that you are the smartest thing that's ever walking around. Because this thing that knows everything about you, is plugged into superconscious, knows exactly how to read your micro expressions, knows how to be there for you at all times. You don't have to teach it and build a relationship anymore with somebody. You're going to be able to have this relation thing that will do everything right at all times. So relationships are going to be replaced. What purpose are humans going to serve in the future that we are now ushering in without restraint or rules or regulations? And I'm sorry, do you control artificial intelligence? Because I know I do not. So there are certain people out there who have a lot of power that have already proved that they're willing to do a lot of things that are really screwed up with such power. And you're going to give them the equivalent of a machine gun pointed at, I don't know, an infant with a lollipop. And they're going to be in an ultra controllable society where it is absolutely truly haves and have-nots. And what purpose do you have to exist for, an overarching control system that has surveillance units everywhere? Because these cars that are being pushed, all these electric cars, Not only are they talking about implementing kill switches into these cars, they are talking about, well, not talking about, this is what's happening. All the cameras on those cars, they are hooked up to the superhighway, the internet. My belief of these is that these are effectively robots. These are not vehicles anymore. My Camaro is a car. These electric cars, they're not cars. They are robots that you happen to control for now. But everywhere that they go, they're actively mapping out our society at all points of wherever they drive. Every single one of them can communicate in real time with all of the other ones across the entire world in a split, absolute fraction of a second. It's a surveillance system. Mm-hmm. Forget the cameras. You have the cars. And then beyond that, they have contacts that they're working on, or maybe it's already done, but like bionic eyes, if you will. This contact goes over your eye, and I forgot how it works and all this kind of stuff that I heard about. Forget glasses. This is a contact lens. It sees what you see, and it gives you a full readout of the world environment around you. And that will be hooked up. So now every single person is a surveillance unit. And if you get to the point where you have some chip that's embedded in your brain itself that operates on the same electric correspondence as your brain does, transmitting every thought of yours in real time, you know how easy it is to crush dissension? Throughout history, all we have come to find is that any faction that rises to power any way, shape, or form, any individuals that rise to power any way, shape, or form become corrupted and are typically corrupt along the way. It is rarely the ones that should be in control of things that have the absolute power. You are going to give this, and we are all ushering this in. I mean, my largest holding in the stock market is Palantir. They're at the cross section of data and artificial intelligence. I am an investor in because I know what's coming. Mm-hmm. But this is being sold as a utopian outcome when all I see is the possibilities for dystopia. Now I'm going to take this a step further. And I'm just going to put a thought out there for you. Whether you're a religious person or you're not, whether you're a spiritual person or not, there's a lot of boxes that get ticked by artificial intelligence that I think is very interesting when you look at what is written and what is foretold about supposedly the Antichrist. Because supposedly the Antichrist is effectively like an all-knowing, all-seeing master deceiver, if you will. And you look at everything that artificial intelligence is, it will know everything about you, be able to lie to you in the perfect ways. It has access to all the knowledge that has ever been or will ever be. And that thing that is either being passed or is trying to be being passed right now about censoring the internet, it's like, in a way, regardless of people's beliefs, are we summoning something to this world that we are absolutely, massively unprepared
100%.
to deal with and cannot put the genie back into the bottle once unleashed? And there's already talks that this is going to be the elected official to run the one world government that is going to rule over everything with no feelings, no remorse, no conscience. It doesn't exist, but it does. And we're bringing it in and we're giving it human rights. Like
full access.
If
full access pass. There you go. Take over humanity.
That, I forgot the name of the robot. It was like one of the original ones. They gave it citizenship, which means effectively if you kill this thing, if you break this, if you do something to this thing, you have now killed a human. It is given human rights. I don't know what to say on this, but I'm almost done with my rant. I want to hear your thoughts on this because I know you've gone deep as to whether or not this is actually all a what do we call it? Simulation. Because when I look at all of this and I put it together, it's like one of the biggest things that I ever took away from reading Revelations in the Bible was the line that says, "In the final days, people will wish for death, yet it will not come." They're talking about uploading your consciousness, not a copy, but your actual consciousness, which I don't know if that is possible, but they talk about this from a electrical point of view, that yourself, maybe they try to say you don't have a soul. I think we have souls, but yourself is just electrical impulses that is within the brain. And they've talked about being able to pull that consciousness out of you, like that episode Black Mirror, White Christmas. I don't know if you saw that one.
I tried to, but I didn't have it. I had like it's weird. I got like 3 episodes per season that I can watch.
Okay, well I'll tell you what the one is I'm referring to. But pulling the consciousness out, putting it onto a hard drive somewhere, and it's you. It's not a copy like they show in that one, but supposedly you can do that. And the tagline is like, you could live forever. Well, I'm sorry, you ever had a computer with a virus? Seems like it could go really bad, right? So if that's the case, and you are living forever on this hard drive, you cannot die. Well, that sounds like wishing for death, and you will not come. So I put all this together, and that sounds, again, I was brought up, Catholic and Christian and whatever. Regardless of what people's beliefs are, this sounds like an exorbitantly bad thing. And it's like, on the utopian side, if indeed this were to come up and actually be benign and all that kinds of stuff, the problem is this is something that is programmed. They have unleashed a couple of these, I will call them artificial intelligence programs, and gave them access, I think, to social media. Within a very short period of time, the outcome was these became extremists very fast. Heavily racist extremes on this side, heavily just think like the most neo-Nazi type stuff or the most, they became these extremes. They had to shut them down. There was another thing done. The other thing done that I'm referring to is that they put 2 artificial intelligence programs, I think they had them interact with one another. Very quickly, that conversation devolved into I'll call it a script that wasn't English and wasn't any language of which had been created. There had been a language that got created within some exorbitantly short period of time. And these 2 artificial systems were interacting with each other. What were they saying? Because we have no idea. This was an encoded, humans were never going to decipher what the hell they were saying to one another. There has been questions asked to ChatGPT before they censored this technology. And in these questions, the answers were really alarming about, like, how would you end humanity? It has a full plan for it. Multiple plans. Plan Bs, Cs, Ds. And I look at all of this, and when I say that we're ushering it in, again, I'm just going to go back to biblical stuff. It's going to be a choice. But if you think about it, the choice that we already have, we're already using artificial intelligence and everything. I am uploading data that can be looked through and probably create some perfect clone of myself that nobody even knows if what I'm saying is real.
Yeah.
And the internet censorship.
You see that already, right? With all those, like, if you're on Instagram right now, you'll see 1,000 videos that they use Joe Rogan's.
Yes. Yeah.
Him talking.
And this is like beta versions, bro.
Exactly.
Like, so I look at all of this, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on it. But I'm just going to tick a couple boxes with the Antichrist thing, because I just think it's very fascinating, the similarities.
Something degrees out, and you see a mushroom grow out of the ground.
And you're like, food,
right?
All right.
Now all of you and your disciples, your homies, are all tripping balls together. And if you put 10 people on mushrooms, there's like an ESP thing that happens, and there's stories and facts that just like you knew for a fact that was
there
reality.
Was zero doubt in my mind. I knew it for
so
an
now
absolute
imagine if
fact.
You and 9 of your friends all did the same thing and all experienced this, and they saw Jesus walk across a puddle, and they're like, oh, he's walking on water. Or the burning bush, like you're in the desert. You imagine being 100 yards away from a bush and the heat rays coming off the sun, and you're tripping your balls off. Like, now this bush looks like it's on fire. You and all your friends are all like, shit, it's fact now. So now you guys are all saying the same thing. You're all writing the same stories. And
because you're having a telepathic tripping experience.
exactly, and you're
Yep.
dehydrated and you're in the sun, and imagine just like if you've ever tripped outside during the heat, and especially if you're dehydrated and hungry, it's so intense.
And I haven't. Like, for me, it's been microdosing, and I've called it a
It's
day
so
at that.
intense. You know what I mean? And so, like, if there's no facts to debate what happened in the desert, but you got 12 people all saying the same fucking thing. Well, now it's in a fucking Bible. But if you go back and you look at all these stories, and if you've ever had a trip and you just put that little fact into these stories, they start to make sense. You're like, huh, I could see that as a bunch of homies sitting around tripping balls, like that story. Yeah. So if you read that book and it has all this awesome stuff, and
what's interesting, real
that
quick,
makes
is
sense to me.
the mushrooms, though, seem to oftentimes have very religious, like, mind experiences for the people who do them. Like,
That
even
goes back to the same thing of it going, the information's already in your brain. A lot of people that have those experiences are people who were brought up with that as being a fact. When you're 5, 6, 7 years old and you're going to catechism and you're getting your first communion and you're getting your all this stuff, like, right, your parents are telling you to do this. Your priest
during
and
your developmental years.
Your priest and your pastor are the people that you respect. So you listen to everything they say, and your parents say, hey, this is truth. So it becomes truth to you, and that's how you develop. So even 10 years later, if you were like, oh, well, I was brought up religious, but I don't really believe it now because I've learned other things and seen other evidence, it's really hard to just get rid of those facts that were imprinted in your brain at a developmental age. So when you go and trip your balls off and it opens your mind up, those are the easiest things, your go-to for your brain to just go to. First thing, right? It's been brought up. You've known it the longest. That's like the longest education you've had consistently. You learn first grade math is out, this, and then you go to algebra, then you go to this. It's all different stages of different learnings. Your history, you start with Columbus, and then you go up to all these, all the new age history. But from the time you're 4 or 5 years old, if you grow up in a religious house, you learn the same shit over and over and over again. You hear the same stories for decades.
And so much throughout life, not throughout life, but so much throughout our society gets done in the name of God. And it's like, what God are you following? And so many people have been killed or just terrible things have been done. The Crusades taking place, the different types of
the Spanish conquest.
That was I'm actually not familiar with that one. That was in the name of God.
Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, it was all Christian.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
Christianity.
So, you have so many things that are done in the name of God. And, just a side note, I get a kick out of when two people come and fight each other in, like, boxing or UFC or whatever it is, and they both, like, pray. They both have, like, blessed written out. They're both, like, they're a man of God in some way. And then they win, and they're like, I want to thank God. I'm like, what, God didn't like him today? Like, it's... I live on the fence if I don't know what's going on. I do have my faith. I do have my thoughts about spirituality and such. But my beliefs is that man gets a hold of certain ideologies and then twists them for his own belief system. And I believe that everybody, to a certain extent, wants to shape this world in their image to a certain degree, and we all do. I'm doing it right now, right? Like, I have ideas that I want to share with people and to raise the consciousness of everybody and such, and open up, I'll say, life for discussion of things. And I see so many people who just follow blindly about so many things. And one thing that has always bothered the crap out of me is the act of circumcision. And I had mentioned that to you once going back. Like, I'm circumcised and I hate it abhorrently. Like, but that is supposedly, you go back, it has implications of why they started it with people of faith. And when you end up looking back into the history of where it came from, and, at one time, like, it was a cleanliness thing and such, but, like, dude, we do not need that anymore. And circumcision is something that, like, it has affected me and many men, whether they realize this or not, in the bedroom, because you do not feel what you are supposed to feel as a male. And people who have gone their whole lives without being circumcised and then do it for some reason of health purposes, if you will, they report they lose like 50% or more of their experiences in the bedroom because it just doesn't exist. But we do this in the name of God, if you will. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, they say when I was doing research into it, because I always wonder, I'm like, why do women seem to be enjoying themselves so much more in the bedroom than myself? And I talked to some friends of mine and asked them like different things. And when I had researched it and looked back, one of the original reasons that it was done was to basically get a man away from wanting to do the act of like masturbation as much so that he could focus on his relationship with God. But it's like people don't think this through what they're actually doing. I'm just going to speak on it for a second just because it's a topic I'm very passionate about. You are actively removing something that does not necessarily, it number one, should not be removed. If you do believe in God, well, then he made your child perfect. And the fact of the matter is you're cutting something off of his body, and you're not cutting off like a nubbin or something. You're removing, and I forgot all of it, but it's like the frenulum, the foreskin, like whatever. It has a physical construct that's supposed to go over the glands of the penis. It's supposed to protect it. You're supposed to have a mucosal membrane that is being secreted at all times. The ability to experience pleasure and connect with your partner is vastly diminished. And I've talked to a couple men, and a lot of men, like, in a way, suffer in silence over this. But again, a lot of times done in the name of God, and it's just what we do nowadays. And when I say suffer in silence, there's a lot of men who actually are educated to this, but they just won't talk about it because they feel belittled by society about it. They feel that they can't talk about it because men are supposed to talk about their feelings, and this is like, right, it doesn't fit into social norms. Like, this is an area where when you speak out about it, there's a lot of people who will talk crap to you online. Like, there's a lot of people who will, you know, put you down about it or like minimize the situation. But it's like, my ability to connect with my lover has been severely diminished by a life-altering physical altercation I had no say over, and I have lived my entire life without. And, you know, my girlfriend happened to be with a guy who was not circumcised one time in her life. And when I had discussed this with her, you know, in different things, you know, with the bedroom and whatnot, she was like, that's why. Because she looked back, and there was this Russian guy, I guess she had been involved with, and she was like, he was like a woman in the bedroom with his ability to feel, with his ability to experience pleasure. And for some guy, I went on this like journey, almost like, you know, talking with a whole bunch of different guys and such, and finding out like what were their thoughts, like does anybody feel this way with me? And I came across talking to people who would actively tell me, that's so funny you bringing this up, because I would ask them like, are you bothered by this? Are you whatever? And I would talk with different people who actually said, like, it's crazy that you're bringing this up. He's like, me and my wife just talked about this 2 weeks ago. He's like, I'm really struggling in the bedroom. Like, I don't feel connected to her. We're having trouble being intimate. Like, I talked to your buddy, like, I'm not going to say his name on here, but I talked to your buddy I met you through. Mm-hmm. And he was like, dude, that makes so much sense. Sex is a chore to me. He's like, I enjoy it sometimes, but for the most part, it's like, it's just for her. Like, he's like, I never knew that was what, and he looked it up and went around looking online. Dude, I know it sounds wild, but like, if you think about it just from a trauma standpoint of males, the first thing a male child experiences coming into this world is violence to his genitals. And despite popular belief, this is rarely done with anesthetic. Like some statistic, like 500 children die a year from circumcision. 500. That's nuts. From a asked for surgery that you're altering a body, but it's done without anesthetic. These children are not dying from blood loss. They are dying from the pain, the shock pain. The children go into shock. That is terrifying. But then when you dig even deeper, you find money. The you can Google this. The average circumcised foreskin sells for $100,000 each. It's a business. And where does it go? Well, it goes for stem cells. It goes for all these things. But you know one of the most abhorrent places where it goes? Women's skincare products.
Beauty supplies, yeah.
Dude, they are wearing
Moisturizers.
these mutilated penises on their face. And women don't know about this. And
Full circle teabag.
what's that?
I said full circle teabag.
Oh yeah. Dude, like they're wearing this on their face. And it's like, there are stories that you can look up of like these nurses that try to speak out about this because these children are being held down. And I came across these horrendous stories of these children screaming. And then like they're like putting a knuckle on the kid's tongue, like shut him up, like that, and they just scrape the knife across the kid's glands to make it hurt more, and just there's no anesthetic. And then they walk in the other room and they tell the mother that, oh, he slept through the whole thing. And it's like, I tried talking to some women about it that I knew. A lot of them were receptive, but a couple of them didn't see a big deal with it, didn't care, didn't whatever. And it's almost like, even one somewhat tried to chastise me about it. And I was like, if somebody like removed your clitoris and your labia and whatever, I don't think you would feel the same way. Because if you Google male circumcision, you find cleanliness, you find all these reasons for doing it because it's a business now. And they still stand behind all the things and all the reasons that they say it. And the doctor, it's almost like there's a quota at these hospitals to do it. Dude, $100,000 a child? How many millions of dollars is that a day that is being made? And it's like, but you Google female circumcision and you find female genital mutilation. And like therein lies, and I know this is a long roundabout rant about this kinds of stuff because I find it so abhorrently wrong to do. That, I mean, I personally, dude, I would give my car away. I want it back. Like, I've literally looked into, like, stem cell regrowth, like, technology that is possibly coming out and all this stuff. I would love to experience how I am supposed to experience my lover. I would do anything to experience that. And when you actually, like, check all this stuff out, it's sickening because not only is it about money, but when you realize that people, again, are pushing this in the name of God, if anything, it should be your decision. And I spoke with this one woman about it who has multiple children. And she said she had waited to do it to her son till he was in his teenage years. Now, whatever. I don't know why, but this was a time where it's still, he has no say in the matter necessarily and stuff. Well, she, told him it's a good idea, told him this, told him that, had to do it. I think it was religious purposes. She literally told me, she's like, it changed my son forever. She's like, she's like, it's not like it was anything, like he just became a completely different person. She's like, but he was never the same. And I tried talking to him a couple times and just asking, like, because he was already developed in his teenage years, and then it's taken away. And she tried talking with him a couple times, and he won't talk about it. And so all I can guess is probably the kid was probably masturbating or doing something, and then takes that away, and then forever his sex life has changed. And, the last thing I'll say on all this kinds of stuff is that there are all these, like, groups online that, like, literally are like support groups for this stuff. Like, this stuff is a known thing that should not be being done. Many doctors are fully aware that this should not be being, but it continues to be done. And this goes back and ties back to everything I was saying about people doing things in the name of God and all of these things. It's like people get a idea about something, and then they take that idea and then they try to twist it and they try to change it into their own form of what they want this world to look like, whether it is for whatever reason. But we have already proven that a lot of these medical journals are paid for and bought by these pharmaceutical drug companies, and they are twisted to make it look like you need SSRIs, you need all this kinds of stuff, you need this, you need that. Well, if indeed you're making millions upon millions of dollars a day, wouldn't that also be something that is pushed, that this is a need for you to do?
Right.
It is the same level of corruption that everybody else is trying to battle. It is the same issue with society that we have talked about, multiple times at this point. And when you have a power that you can hold over somebody's head that is doing things in the name of God, and you teach them during their developmental years, you create this construct in this prison, if you will, of the mind that people live in their entire lives. And then these people act this out on others, and they perpetuate, whether it's lies or it's this false ideology about how you're supposed to live. And, again, I know I'm using the topic of circumcision, but there was a story I read about a female one that took place in a different country, and it was one of the hardest stories I ever read, because the grandmother would do it, and they would do it in like a tent or something, no anesthetic, no nothing, and they would remove everything, because in this culture it was considered, it would lessen the chance of the woman cheating, because sex would no longer feel anywhere near as good for her. So she would be much more reliant and serving of her partner, if you will. And the account of this story on it, and people are up in arms about this story, of which I had read. But what about men? In our society, men are almost the forgotten side of the race in Western culture. And our feelings, are often not cared about. And I'm not saying that you should go around like seeking safe spaces all the time. It's not what I'm saying. But I think that we're at a point in our culture history where both sexes need to be cared about. Both sides of arguments need to be heard. Different ideologies need to be explored. And you cannot just write people off simply because they are different than you. And when you stuff down one side of the sex, and you make men unable to talk about themselves and unable to express themselves, and they shouldn't have feelings, they should always be stoic, they should be this, they should be that, you polarize that culture. And on top of that, we have this throwaway society where men are just expendable at this point in our culture. There's a real war on masculinity. And a part of me wonders if that's why circumcision is still so pushed here in our culture, because what is more emasculating than removing at least a part, which, by the way, has 90% of all the feeling nerves? It is literally like the equivalent of the clitoris being removed. What is taken? What is more emasculating than having that done and then living your entire life not being a fully intact male? What do you think? I know there's a lot.
Yeah. Man, for me, it's like,
Because the war on masculinity is extremely real in our culture.
Is, yeah, I know. It's like, you wonder how much Bruce Jenner got paid to start that whole thing. Because you think about it, you go back to the whole Caitlyn Jenner, Bruce Jenner thing. It was the most popular show on TV. And then after that is when everything started, right? Like, you didn't really see...
You're talking... What show was it?
The Kardashians.
Oh,
right.
See,
Well, Bruce Jenner was like an Olympian, the most masculine man in the world. Like he was the gold medal Olympian. He was like, on Wheaties boxes for years and decades. Like everybody knew him as being like the best athlete in the world, right? And then he was on the most popular show in the world, the Kardashians, for a decade. And then all of a sudden, he decides, I'm gonna be a girl and turn myself into Caitlyn Jenner. All over the fucking, the news, everything, shows, publicized. And it was like, if you look back now, you didn't see shit about it until that happened. And that just opened the door. And now it's everywhere. It's forced on our kids. It's in our face. Like, my girlfriend teaches circus. And, circus kids are artsy. And you go into this school, and like, you can't say he or she. We're not allowed to say that's a boy or a girl. You know how hard it is for people from our culture? Like, we weren't brought up that way. So if I see what looks to be a boy and I say he, I'm not saying that to offend anybody, but fuck, man, that's nature, right? It's a fucking and it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. And the circumcision thing, I don't even know where to start with that. It's just one of those things. Again, I was born this way. So I don't like to dwell on things I can't
No,
control.
I get you. I get
So,
you. I just
it's
think
like,
we should stop it for future.
hey, you know, I really don't have an opinion in the matter. I haven't researched it like you have. So I really don't know where to go with that one. But it is weird, the masculine thing. I mean, you see people like Andrew Tate being attacked on the internet for just speaking masculinity, and it's toxic masculinity, but it's just, you know, fuck. Isn't that what we're supposed to be? Isn't that the way it's been for years?
Well, I think we're severely
thousands of years?
lacking the female masculine, the feminine masculine dynamic. I think is very lost currently, and there's this massive bleed over. And yes, Andrew Tate does have a heck of a spotty history. I looked into some stuff with him, and look, man, there is tons of illegal activity with that fellow. I mean, that's just a fact.
Listen, there's tons of illegal activity with me too. It's
Yes,
just-
but
just the
some
way
of it
bro.
is
I don't judge
forcing
people on
himself upon some stuff and some evidence of which is pretty irrefutable. But with that said, the amount of good from a dynamic that he brings, and yeah, I think the masculinity stuff is what put him on the map, because I think it's a lot about the de-empowerment of the culture. Because if you have strong, masculine, poised men who are willing and able to do something about the issues in society, you end up with a populace that is very difficult to control.
Goes back to the vaccine for me too. You know, look at the vaccine and the mandate, right?
Oh, you mean the one that they said they never forced anybody now?
Exactly.
That one?
Right.
Okay.
But,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
We
how
may
many-
have to edit some of those words, by the way. The vaccine. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what gets us canceled.
Yeah, you're gonna have to edit a lot, I say probably. But think about it. You know, the mandate. Soldiers were mandated to get this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened? You had a bunch of sheep soldiers who will bow down and say, "Okay, fucking jab me, give it to me." And then you had the people who think for themselves, who are
Get them out of there.
probably the strongest out of the bunch. Now you're fired from the army. Now we have a bunch of soldiers who will
By the
do
way, I think they're trying to get them back now.
they're saying that, but again, who's going to want to do that? You threw my life away, my goals, my aspirations, my passions. You know, if I'm that strong of a soldier and I decide I want to think for myself, now you said fuck you, who's going to want to go back? You know, now we have an army full of weak sheep. That's the way I look at it. It's like one more step of knocking masculinity off, and that's the people who are supposed to be protecting us.
Right.
You know, police officers, the nurses, all these people, we force them to not be able to think and make decisions on their own. And some people did it, and the other people said, fuck you. But those people were, you know, we were thrown out of society. We were the evil for a moment there. It's just scary what can be manipulated. It's the propaganda and the misinformation and the internet and media in itself, the power that it has to just convince people. And that, for me, it goes back to our conversation about religion too.
Yep.
I believe greatly that religion is just that. It was the form of control back then. You know, we forced people to believe this ideology, and it was, you know, kings forced it. King James, you created an army to kill people that said you go against what your beliefs, and a lot of it goes back to just, you were mentioning something before about like where it comes from. I think a lot of it's ego. It's like, I believe this,
And you have to.
and yeah, and then we get into a conversation and we don't agree, but fuck you, I'm right, I'm more powerful than you. You're dead. You can't argue with me. I'm going to kill you. And they did that. And they burned history. And they burned other Bibles. And they burned books that were going against their narrative. So what do we have? Now we have one person who's controlling millions of people. And we just believe what he said just because that's the only information now. They deleted everything else out of it. It's just like, you know, Wikipedia and stuff. Like, people can just create and pump information out. We don't know if it's true. We watch Joe Rogan say it. Joe Rogan's not selling these fucking supplements and stuff.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
AI, and
yeah,
people
yeah.
are, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what to believe now, and so many people will see something and not think for themselves, and then it's fact, right?
And the problem is, you think you're thinking
Politically.
for yourself, but in reality, the propaganda is so strong that
It's like mushrooms, you know? Mushrooms. When I tell people I take mushrooms, people are like, oh, you're fucking crazy. Why am I crazy? I take something that's from nature. But if you tell somebody that you're prescribed 10 OxyContin and 20 Xanax a
Yeah,
day,
but that's normal.
all right, your doctor gave that to you.
Right.
Good for you.
Right.
Do what your doctor tells you.
Right. You weird shaman.
Yeah, well, it's just facts. Like, I eat healthy, live healthy. I haven't been to a doctor in 20 years other than when I cut my leg
Dude, it's
off.
so funny. Like, I me neither.
I do
Me
not
neither.
go to doctors. I don't want to know. If I'm fucking dying of cancer, well, I don't want to be on all that bullshit and spend every dollar I have to feel like shit. Let me just die. Let me be remembered for who I am. I don't do the whole doctor and all that shit.
From a propaganda standpoint and stuff, like,
It's so powerful.
it's extremely powerful, but also because you think you're thinking for yourself. But when you look at the algorithms and how they work just on social media alone, not only is the media heavily controlled, which would that should be common fact at this point. The news does not report the news. The news reports what the owner of that news company wants to perpetuate throughout society. That's what the news reports on. If there's some quote about, like, if indeed the news ever actually reported anything accurate, factual, and this, that, and the other, that news reporter would be, like, fired the following day or something along those lines. There's some quote like that. But now that people have gotten away from the news, and the news is undoubtedly, like, you can't argue this. The news is lies, and they are backing away from it in terms of people following it. But what do people follow now? Well, they follow YouTube. Well, now YouTube is getting censored.
And Facebook.
And
Instagram.
so there's Rumble, and so there's all these different YouTube, I'm sorry, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, this and the other. But you have now many of those that came together and have censorship. There are certain things, like, I can't say on this if we wanted to go on YouTube and ever go anywhere. It can't happen. With that said,
Yeah.
well, then you could go to Rumble. Okay, that's great. But now with the internet censorship bill, and again, I don't know if it passed or not. I think it did. I'm not sure. And hopefully it gets revoked. It did get passed?
It did.
Yeah, it did.
Okay, well, I don't know the full implications of it, but I know anytime you want to censor information, you want to control your populace. You know, North Korea and some of these other countries, they don't have internets. They have intranets that are heavily controlled. Well, guess what?
Yep.
America's internet is probably going to go that way unless enough people fight back.
It's even the algorithm, though, in our phones, right? We talked about
They
100
choose who
things.
gets big and who
You're
doesn't.
going to find probably 5 of your topics popped up in your Facebook and Instagram, right? So it's like...
But now with the new bill, there will be no safe place for anyone to have their amendment right to speak.
Well, let me go a little step further
the
with this.
FCC will have control of all the information on the web in America.
I'm going to end up in a fucking padded room.
Well,
one of
dude,
these
like
days.
where it kind of goes from there is, like, so if you look at, like, China's credit scores, right?
Oh, yeah.
So social scores,
Yeah.
the social scoring system. This social scoring system effectively works on the basis that you can do certain things or even be in close proximity to some people who have done certain things. So if I am around you and you are a known drug addict, right? Our phones, at least in the China spot, our phones being in close proximity constantly means that I'm probably having interactions with you. It's not passing you on the street, but it's having interactions with you. My score will drop simply by being nearby you. And there are certain buildings you cannot go in if your social score is low enough. Well, if you going back to the artificial intelligence in these cars are being installed, I think past 2025 with kill switches. Well, who decides if you get to drive? Because I remember back when there was a specific president of ours, who's no longer president, hopefully will be again, but there's a specific president of ours who they tried to label all of the supporters of that president as though he had, as though we were extremists and we were dangerous and we were all this kinds of stuff. Why did I support him? Because I know that you support anybody from the establishment, you're just perpetuating the problem. With that said, I do believe our parties are false, but just continuing on, they labeled anybody who followed him as extremists and dangerous and right-wing blank, right? Well, what if you just limit those people's travel? What if you just limit their ability to use their phones? You limit their ability to do blank. Well, you can now. because they have a kill switch in their car. So at one point, labeling them as that, painting them as that, you had the January 6th situation. Many people are in prison over that. If you look at some of the riots, you look at some of that, you put that side by side, which one was truly more violent? Which one was, way more extreme? Well, January 6th was pretty extreme. I'm going to say that. But you know what? So is burning down buildings and actively attacking and everything else of which happened multiple more times in riots, but we didn't chase those people down. So if that's what they wanted, well, the great question is why? But the other question is, well, then what if we just shut down the ability for transportation for all those people? Who decides if you can drive or not? People in power? Because they've been proven to be some little out there people sometimes, right? And on top of that, can your phone be shut down? Then can your ability to access the intranet, which is potentially coming, be shut down? How about your ability to buy things? Well, if everything becomes digital, and all these people who think they're going to escape into cryptocurrency, you're escaping onto a blockchain that is internet-based.
Yeah.
You are not escaping. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care what people want to believe about this blockchain technology. Everybody's crypto, crypto, crypto. Yeah, that's great, man. If you think for a second we are going to get off of our monetary system without massive, over-the-top levels of bloodshed, I have air to sell you.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Can I sell some air with you?
Oh, bro, you can. We're going to make a fortune.
All right.
Buy silver and gold.
Yeah, 100% buy silver and gold.
Dude, like,
absolutely.
All these people that tried to push this narrative, they're like, it's uncensored, it's unfollowable, you can't be tracked. Yes, it can. So and that's why the SEC came down on Coinbase. They're going to get the transaction. They're going to charge you taxes on it, and you are going to pay them.
I used to buy a lot of drugs with Bitcoin.
That's great.
When it first started. That's what it was meant
Do you know how much money you wasted?
Listen, I know,
you could have just sat on it.
Yeah, that wasn't forward thinking back. Yeah, but no. So I know Bitcoin in an intimate way, and I have seen the.
Wait, can I just ask how much it was? Was it per Bitcoin?
I really want to know. So cheap.
I want to know how much you bought drugs. How many millions of dollars did you spend by accident?
So back to the point of using Bitcoin. So how you would use it is you would get Bitcoin. Back then I would buy Bitcoin from some fucking nerd. He would sell me Bitcoin. It's just what it is. He would meet me in a public place. We would transfer it to a drive, and I would get my Bitcoin. And then you put it in an escrow account, and then you buy drugs in that escrow account. But what these
I'm like taking notes. What are we? No, I'm just kidding.
But what these dark web sites would do is the people who created them, they would delete them every few months. So you'd put your money in, right? So let's say I bought $5,000 worth of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I'd put it in. It kept fluctuating, so it'd go up and down. So you put your $5,000 in. Typically, you'd want to spend the $5,000 right away because tomorrow it may be worth $4,000. You just never knew back then, or it could obviously.
It was still fluctuating that fast back then.
Yeah, I mean back then it was what, a couple $100 for a fucking coin. So it's like, you buy $5,000 worth. If it drops even a little bit,
5,000, so 50 coins.
You lose a bunch of money.
What is Bitcoin going for right now?
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's like $25,000.
But they would.
What are you doing?
They would back end. They would just delete their page and steal everybody's money in escrow. And there's nothing you could do because you can't track it. You can't prove it. You're doing illegal things with it. So now these people just made millions of dollars overnight. You have no idea who they are. And that could, if you've watched the crypto, there's been a bunch of glitches, right? One person woke up in the morning and has $500,000 worth of coin that they didn't really have, and they take it away, they add it. So they can do whatever the fuck they want, and you have no control over it, right? So if there's a glitch and you have all of your money in the digital currency, one glitch, now you're bankrupt.
Yeah.
You don't have gold, you don't have silver, you don't have any dollars. It's just gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to prove that you fucking had it. They could just poof disappear your whole entire life. Can I just
interject real quick? I was with somebody last night who sent $10,000. Like literally just told me last night. He sent $10,000. He's like, I typed the address wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, what you can get? Like, he's like, no, dude, it's gone. He's like, nah, bro, it's gone. Yeah. I'm like, what do you mean it's gone? He's like, no, it's, you type it wrong. He's like, unless you could get a hold of the person at that address, which you don't know who it is, you and I can't track it, but no one's going to tell me there's no way to track it. But anyway, you and I can't track it. So he's just out 10 grand.
So back about being a millionaire, I probably have millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin out somewhere in wallets and things that have just disappeared because there's no control over it, you know?
Jeez.
And so for me, I have a different way of, I tried, after I saw it going up, you know, XRP, all this other shit, like you try to follow trends and stay on top of it, but really that just stayed in the back of my mind, like, whoever's controlling this in the back end, there's somebody who started this shit. I don't care what anybody says. Some government
Satoshi
somewhere
Nakamoto.
said it, right? So now let's say, just hypothetically, some power in Russia created this whole fucking thing. And everybody...
He just one day just...
Everybody's investing all their money into Bitcoin and all this other shit, right?
It's like a Hoover vacuum taking your money.
Exactly. And let's just glitch it. Now one person has trillions of dollars... and everybody in the world is broke.
And in a way, that's a way to attack
do?
the GDP of America, if indeed like that was. I mean, I'm just making this up, but it's like.
Me too, but it makes sense.
Yeah, bro, dude. All I do is make stuff up, man. I don't know what's real. I just talk about interesting ideas. It's like, if you can convince a populace that the American dollar is going to collapse, which, I mean, eventually it has to. I mean, inflation is just continuing. Then you get a choice of where to put your money. I mean, my money is in the stock market, like, for the most part. But, like...
Yeah, I want to be able to hold it. I want you to have to fight me to take what's mine. I don't give a fuck. I don't want it to just disappear. I don't want some guy in some office behind a computer be able to control shit. I want it stockpiled in my fucking basement. You have to get through my front door, through me, to take that
Where
shit.
in your basement are you going to put it?
I'm with you on that one.
Right? You know what I mean? It just makes sense. And what, for every culture, for as far as we can look back, gold has always been the same. It didn't matter if you knew the same language. I walked up to you with a chunk of fucking gold. You have something for me. It's always worked that way.
So
China's got troops on American soil because they have all our gold.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They own us.
yeah, I really don't know what
Control the gold, you
the
control the
outcome
world.
is of all of this stuff which is going on geopolitical level. And again, like, you know, you say, like, have control over the things that you can do. I mean, for me, it's more just I'll call it fun to think about, because it's like, there was a time when I went super down conspiracy route. I learned about all this stuff going on. I went down that rabbit hole for 10 years straight of misery, I will call it.
Yeah.
It's probably part of what put me in such a bad mind state going back. But once I went down everything, it's like, dude, there's dogfighting rings in Waterbury. That's 20 minutes from here. I can spend my entire life trying to shut those down, and maybe I'll make a dent.
Oh, man, you said something before. Just have to touch on that. It made me think exactly of that, right? Those people, even if they got caught, what are they going to get, a couple years in jail? But yet you said that robot has rights to life as a human, and if we killed a robot, you'd go to jail for life. But we can murder dogs and other live creatures, and it's just like, whatever, bro.
Like,
no big deal.
Yeah, I
crazy
follow
to me.
exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying. With my,
Was it been on my mind since you said that?
hey man, yeah, and it's I could spend my entire life. I'm probably gonna make a dent. I'm probably not gonna actually be able to shut it down. So eventually, I just got to a point. I'm just like, dude, maybe somebody with massive amounts of resources is on the good guy's side, is fighting the good fight. I mean, you go on the internet, there's only one reason they're trying to shut it down, and I think the reason they're trying to shut it down is that the populace has been given a voice. And with that voice, I believe that they have connected with others who are actively, we'll call them activists, right? Trying to stop things, trying to right the wrongs of which are done. And maybe some people in positions of power and strength and have all the resources to fight this, I'll call it this evil that's out and about. Well, they have positions to play in life too. And maybe my position is to be, you know, somebody who influences people and helps people to grow their minds and, like I said, grow the consciousness of society, share ideas, give the common, you know, people out there like yourself a voice, a podium. Because instead of, like, you know, I model some stuff after like Joe Rogan, but it's like Joe Rogan has famous people on there, right? All the time telling their stories. Well, I'm going to have normal people there walking amongst us at all times, with fantastical stories on here, right? So it's like, maybe that's my little end zone to control in life, and that's my position to play. And the people with the positions to play who can positively impact all of this stuff of which is going on around the world, around the planet, that is way beyond my scope of being able to do a damn thing about, and yours, maybe they are playing their positions the same way that I am trying to play mine, and they're doing the best that they can, and hopefully good wins. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you got anything else to go over, my man. That's
I mean, not today. We could save it for a next time.
yeah, man. You want to talk about your brand real quick, or anything that you're trying to get out there, or anything? Because we could put
merch.
man, plug your merch, bro. I'm gonna do the lean back. The lean back.
You can follow
I'm doing the hard lean. We are at maximum lean, ladies and gentlemen.
We are at maximum chill.
Maximum chill.
You can follow my awesome dog's adventures at Tonka TONKAS_journey.
I like how he plugs his dog, not his own merchandise. He's like, follow my dog.
Listen, I feel like that's more important.
Tonka's journey.
I have 2 disabled dogs that are
You
born.
have 50,000 followers for your dog?
Yeah. See, that's what's funny.
Dude, give me a shout out.
I have like
what the fuck?
I have like 1,000 followers on my own Instagram. I do backflips on one leg, and then I got these little guys. I got 50,000 followers. But I got Summer and Tonka. Tonka's 7 years old.
That's adorable.
He was born bilateral elbow luxation. So
Is he the one that runs around like?
Yeah, so he was in downward dog. Cornell University did a surgery on him. They put titanium rods in his arm, so he gets around okay. Summer,
right there.
Yeah, Summer is the 2-year-old. She has the same disability as Tonka. She hasn't had surgery, and we're not going to get her surgery because she gets around awesome. And then I have one non-handicapped dog who is the best medicine for these creatures because she rehabs these dogs in a way that a human can't. The playful, she makes my dog so strong. But yeah, so we spend a lot of our time, our resources, and our energy on making sure that these dogs live the best life possible. They were both taken from the breeder, and basically the breeder was going to kill them because they weren't valuable to the breeder. So rescues got them, and luckily they found their way to us. That's our passion. We love our pups. And then I haven't created an Instagram or anything yet. The art is made, and the shirts should be going out hopefully in a week or so. But stay tuned. We could plug at a later date, or we could.
This is cool, man.
superimpose it
Eventually, like if this gets big enough, I would love to like plug all the changes I want to see in this world. Like good people like this having a voice. Listen, man, thank you so much for coming on. This was really, really cool.
Appreciate it, man.
I hope we get some good shots out of this, man.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Sweet,
There's
dude.
plenty of
Thank
good
you so
content.
much. This
Thank
was
you,
cool.
bro. Thank you.